Horizon Zero Dawn's announcement back in 2015 brought with it a lot of excitement. This was a brand new IP from Guerrilla Games, a studio that had been churning out Killzone games since the PlayStation 2. It has a very distinctive looking red-headed heroine in Aloy, not Alloy, Aloy. Simply gorgeous graphics. What you're seeing here is actually the standard PlayStation 4 and it looks fantastic and it runs really quite well. But the PlayStation 4 Pro, 4K and HDR take it that step further. But the best thing from its reveal was that you were in a post-apocalyptic world, hunting and surviving in a world now overrun by robotic beasts and monsters. It's every kid that had Zoid's dream to have this game, basically. The reason why the world is as it is manages to be quite surprising though. You see the story unspool as Aloy is first this young outcast girl being raised by her adoptive father but shunned by her tribe before dedicating herself to trying to get answers as to where she came from and why she was outcast. It's just as she's on the cusp of being able to do this, as she's coming of age, that her world and that of the Nora is flipped upside down and she has to set off into the much wider world to find answers, get revenge, and it's here that she encounters different tribes and, of course, many more much bigger robots that she's ever seen before. Truth be told, Aloy, much like this game as a whole, takes a bit of getting used to. Yes, she's got this eye-catching design, but she's lacking in personality for about the first half of the game, and has this kind of annoying tendency to simply mutter under her breath what she's doing and why she's doing it. I think that dies down halfway through as well, but it got on my nerves to start off with. Most of her interactions with other people come in the form of standard face-to-face conversations where you're given quests and then you can ask for more information and so on. The camera changes focus a lot, but the animation it's just the upper body. You've got the facial animations, which are pretty good but kind of dead behind the eyes. And that's fine. I mean, it's kind of normal for open world games and RPGs, but you've just got this slightly pained face on Aloy, and she's always just asking how she can help, or saying stuff like, yes, of course I'll hunt down these thieves for you. It's only through the actual cutscenes and as she's talking to the supporting cast of other important characters in the story that she's building these relationships and that she actually gets to have this personality of her own. Equally, the world itself is a bit confusing. There's a tribe called the Karja, one called the Shadow Karja, somehow the Orisam figure into that relationship. It honestly takes half the game to figure out who the baddies in all of this are meant to be. And yes, there's plenty of human baddies, despite what you might think that this world is just going to be you fighting against robots the entire time. And the different tribes have different perspectives on the robots. The Nora, for example, completely shun them and all technology, whilst others are a bit more amenable to using them to get their own way. Honestly, it's really when you're out in the open hunting robots that the game comes to life. I mean, this is what it's been about all along, when you think about it. It's here that you're free to pick your battles, think of how you're going to take down some of the biggest beasts in the game, and do so with a mixture of stealth, setting traps, hit and run attacks, and just straight up battles. There's lots of parallels to our natural world here, so there's herds of robots that look like horses, deer and bulls, some of which can be hacked and tamed to be ridden around the world or become your allies in battle, and then it carries over to giant crocodiles, big flame-spewing chicken-like creatures. There's obviously one that looks like a T-Rex, and then there's the much more unusual. There's fantastic variety, in other words, and they can all kill you very easily if you're not careful, especially as they rarely appear on their own, so you've always got more than one to deal with. There's also always other pockets of other robots not too far away that might decide to join in if the battle gets a bit out of hand. What's really interesting though is that yes, while you level up and your health is boosted and you can unlock new skills like being able to do silent stealth attacks, your tools of the trade change very little as you play. You've got 7 different weapons, 3 of which are bows, a slingshot, a tether trap, needle gun and a tripwire layer, and that's in addition to specific traps that you can place. But the best bow in the game does no more damage with its fire arrows than the first bow in the game. You've got more specialization, more options maybe, so there's a concussive arrow that can be used with one bow that can knock bits of armor off quite well, but it's much more about learning how each robot behaves, what its weak spots are, and how to deal with that. You're not just going to get a weapon and be able to take out some of the biggest robots without any fuss. You always have to work for it. So for example, the flying robots don't like fire, and if you hit them with a couple of fire arrows, that forces them down to land, which lets you tether them down and get in a few melee attacks. Or maybe you've got your horse buddy and he's just going to kind of kick the bird to death, which is kind of cool. Best of all, the game gives you only the basics during the introduction, then pats you on the bum and sends you on your way to figure out a lot of this for yourself. You do, however, have the focus that Aloy wears on her ear to help you. It's a fancy computing device which does all holograms and stuff like that, and it's a key part of helping you to survive. It can highlight and tag enemies, it points out weak points and elemental strengths and weaknesses, and as the story starts to delve into the past and how the world came to be the way it is, and it's a tale that's kind of got a few dark twists and turns which I wasn't expecting, it's Aloy's link back to those days. Sadly, the open world battles don't really translate too well for the set piece levels. Guerrilla take their core robot hunting stealth action gameplay and try to build set pieces around it, but it loses that little spark in the process. The human AI is just as dumb and regimented as the basic robots, just with the addition of actively investigating a fallen comrade, and that simply plays into your hands because they just walk towards you and then you get to do another stealth kill just from the exact same spot. Later on, fights are maybe a bit better, I think, and perhaps a bit more inventive, but they never feel as natural and fluid as when you can simply run for the hills when a fight isn't going your way. Boss fights, on the other hand, tend to drop you into a bad situation and just force you to fight, and that kind of changes the dynamic. There's no more stealth here, there's rarely a chance to hide, so you've just got to think on your feet, hit those weak spots as best you can, and get through it, and that's a different kind of exhilaration. And yeah, did I mention how good this game looks? It felt like I was almost constantly stopping to indulge in photo mode, just because I saw something like the moonlight shimmer on the water, or I wanted to catch a particular landscape view, or even just the dynamic weather and how it had changed. It is simply stunning to look at this game, and the photo mode is pretty nicely done as well, especially with the ability to change the time of day, which is something that you don't have in, say, Uncharted 4. And that can really dramatically change how a scene looks. So, Horizon Zero Dawn, it's a bit of a slow burn, but it's a game that embraces you in its warmth over time. I really started to enjoy the story and the darkness of the lore in particular, and while it's not perfect in some ways, that monster hunting is pretty great. That's all for this video, but before you go, if you want more of our videos, well, you know exactly what to do in order to check them out. I'm not going to say it, you can figure that out for yourself. You can, however, also visit thesixthaxis.com for our written content, from a written review for Horizon Zero Dawn through to news, previews and other features. So I hope you'll join us again soon, whether it's on the site or on YouTube, and we will see you then. Goodbye!